In this world, there are 54 mysterious cards. The owners can transform these cards into gloves to gain corresponding powers. For example, the power of the Three of Diamonds is to turn touched objects into marbles. This caught the attention of various forces. They were willing to sacrifice their lives to collect more cards. Due to high-level conflicts, the cards scattered across the world overnight. A few days later, a pickpocket named Finn was scouting targets on the streets. He quickly spotted several wealthy individuals. His skilled hands went unnoticed by the victims. However, when he returned home after completing his day's work, he heard bad news. The orphanage that raised him was facing bankruptcy. If it went bankrupt, the children would be homeless. Finn considered it his home and decided to solve the problem himself. But the items he stole were fakes. The dealer didn't even want to name a price and could tell the items were ill-gotten. As the dealer was about to leave, Finn prepared to sell his limited edition clothes. At that moment, the dealer noticed the card in Finn's pocket. If real, it could be worth millions. However, Finn refused to sell it. The dealer doubted the card's authenticity and threw Finn out. Finn had acquired the Two of Spades inadvertently. Although he didn't know how to use it, it always brought him luck. That day, Finn went to the casino to make a big score, but this time he miscalculated. His opponent only needed to clap his hands to win by a slight margin. This made Finn intensely curious about John, the man who kept defeating him, and he kept watching to figure out how he did it. Just then, John, who had just won all of Finn's money, hit the jackpot on a slot machine. His luck caught the attention of the casino staff, who invited him to the VIP room for a drink. Unaware of the danger approaching, John even pulled Finn along to join him. The so-called VIP room was just a dark warehouse. The casino boss suspected John of cheating and demanded to inspect his gloves. As the bodyguard approached him, John clapped his hands together again, causing the bodyguard to trip over his own shoelaces and fall out of a high window. The casino boss quickly ordered another subordinate to capture John. However, the redhead Bobby remained unmoved, pulling out a card and transforming it into a glove. It was then that the casino boss realized Bobby was not one of his men and demanded to see his work ID. Instead, Bobby grabbed the casino boss's arm, turning it instantly into marbles. Others reacted by drawing their guns on Bobby, but predictably, a bodyguard's entire head turned into marbles. Bobby then revealed that John's 10 of Diamonds card, named Unlucky Poker, brought good luck and warded off bad luck. Although it could prevent harm to the holder, it couldn't protect his family. Left with no choice, John reluctantly handed over his card. Just then, a man named Chris appeared at the door with a gun. Clearly, he was also after the cards. Chris fired his gun, but his opponent dodged the bullet with incredible speed. He rushed forward, grabbed Chris's gun, and turned it into marbles. He then reached for Chris's head. However, Chris, also a card holder, activated the power of the Five of Hearts, overpowering Bobby. Suddenly, Bobby pressed his hand on a shelf, turning everything he touched into marbles that shot towards Chris like bullets. Chris had to dodge quickly. Finn was completely shocked by the scene but chose to flee immediately. As Finn left, Bobby realized Finn had stolen his card. Believing the card could save the orphanage, Finn stole a car and fled. Bobby, ignoring his fight with Chris, chased after Finn, launching marble attacks. When Finn was cornered, Chris caught up and crashed both their cars. After the explosion, all three were badly injured but alive. Chris demanded the stolen card from Finn, but in the next moment, a marble burst Chris's head, Bobby's card power. Witnessing their use of the cards, Finn decided to try as well. He summoned a revolver with the Two of Spades, shattered Bobby's marble attack, and hit him. Despite his head bursting, Chris did not die. There are 52 cards in the world, each granting its holder a unique ability. The man standing before Finn holds the Five of Hearts, symbolizing immortality. Chris advises Finn to willingly hand over his card, warning that failing to do so will lead to unbearable future suffering. Just then, a car speeds up, and green vines stretch out from the window, causing Finn to faint before he can react. When Finn wakes up, his card is already stolen. During his unconsciousness, the butler Bernard thoroughly investigated all his information, not just basic details, but even how many relationships he's had. Before Finn could react, Chris, who had earlier confronted him with a gun, appears in front of him, pulling out the Two of Spades. Finn immediately tries to snatch it, but Chris responds by shoving a gun into Finn's mouth, threatening to shoot if he moves again. Finn quickly retreats to his seat. Bernard's aim is straightforward. He wants Finn to join their organization, Pinochle, and help locate the 52 scattered cards worldwide. Their leader is Julius, the king of the Four Nations. They were ordered by the king to recover the cards to prevent criminals from misusing their powers. They ostensibly run a dealership selling vintage luxury cars. Chris handles sales. The woman Wendy is in charge of security, and VJ, who is black, manages online sales. Bernard undoubtedly takes care of administrative tasks. What seems like a desk full of magazines actually conceals an array of weapons. However, Finn is not interested in their justice-driven cause. Bernard then uses both persuasion and pressure. For instance, the redhead Bobby, who used marbles last night, is from the notorious Mafia Klondike family, whose influence even reaches into the government and police. They, too, are keen on recovering the cards. Finn's only chance of survival is to willingly hand over his card. Otherwise, they can easily find him. Bernard promises Finn a high salary if he joins them. After Finn agrees, Bernard returns his card and assigns Chris to supervise him. They then head to a suit shop to pick out a formal outfit. While choosing suits, Finn questions Chris about having seen him killed by a marble, only to see him alive again. Chris reveals that his 5 of Hearts card ability heals any physical damage by burning calories, necessitating a high-calorie diet daily. Reluctantly, Finn sits and waits for Chris to finish when a waiter accidentally spills dessert on a customer, causing an uproar. Finn steps in to act as a peacemaker, but the customer is unreasonable and swings a punch at him. Chris intervenes just in time, and together they manage to defuse the situation for the waiter. Early the next morning, Chris personally picked up Finn for work. However, Finn discovered an earring and the scent of perfume in the car, clearly belonging to the young girl from the day before. Just then, they received a mission to intercept an armored vehicle. Chris instantly turned the car towards the target location, and the pursuing police cleared the way for them, unable to interfere with their mission. As Finn was still trying to understand the situation, Chris activated his card's power to become immortal. Seeing Chris change, Finn also pulled out his 2 of spades, turning it into a revolver. After catching up with the armored vehicle, Finn intended to shoot out the tires, but the vehicle's rear door suddenly opened and a man jumped onto their car roof. To Finn's surprise, it was the seemingly timid waiter from yesterday, who also possessed a card's power. Finn quickly fired his gun, but the bullets had no effect, as if hitting steel. Chris immediately braked hard, throwing the man off, but he was unharmed even after hitting a stone pillar. Meanwhile, Wendy easily took care of the armored vehicle. Undeterred, Finn charged at the man again, firing his revolver repeatedly, but he couldn't breach the man's defense, making Finn doubt his own abilities. As the man's counterattack became inevitable, luckily, Chris reappeared in time and forced the man back onto the car roof. This, however, completely enraged the man. He shattered the car window, grabbed Chris by the neck, and delivered a punch that shattered Chris's spine. At that moment, the car plunged into the water. With the man's rock-solid ability, entering the water was akin to suicide. However, Chris was also trapped inside the car, unable to escape. At that moment, Finn's ability awakened again. He could easily see through the water surface and clearly view the situation underwater. He then pulled the trigger, shattering the car window next to Chris, allowing Chris to escape. Thus, Finn's first mission ended quite simply. However, within the team, Finn was considered a burden because his 2 of spades card ranked the lowest and his strength was the weakest. The boy pulled out a magical card. Whenever activated into a glove, the card holder gains special powers. The Diamond 7 card had an even more outrageous ability. It could convert money into anything as long as you had enough. With just $1 million, the boy created a rocket launcher out of thin air. Today, just as Finn had put on his custom suit, a kidnapping occurred right next to him. Finn immediately looked towards an electric car nearby. The kidnapper was in a worse situation, and the boy, who should have been panicked, seemed indifferent, showing no fear at all. This boy, named Leo, was the son of a wealthy man. At that moment, Finn drove the electric car and shot the kidnapper's tires, causing the car to lose control and crash by the roadside. By the time the kidnapper regained his senses, the boy was gone. Finn then pulled Leo into a restaurant. However, Leo did not thank Finn. Instead, he blamed him for meddling. The two argued nonstop. Fortunately, the kidnapper arrived in time. The kidnapper brothers had been running a small factory, but for some unknown reason, a major client, who was Leo's father, suddenly stopped cooperating. This dog-eat-dog situation was normal, where only the strong could thrive. The kidnapper brothers couldn't grasp such business maxims and immediately started a fight with Finn. Leo did not help at all. Luckily, the police arrived in time and took them all to the station for questioning. Due to Leo's strong background, he was quickly released, and the police chief was very aware of their identities as special ability holders, a status that could cost them their jobs and lives. Meanwhile, in another cell, the kidnapper brothers were also rescued. After this ordeal, the easygoing Finn quickly became friends with Leo and prepared to take the subway back with him. Just then, the recently escaped kidnapper brothers found them again. Their leader Nyx, also a special ability holder, excels in controlling flames with the Seven of Clubs. She forcibly broke the prison doors and set the police station on fire. With Nyx's power manifesting, the subway instantly turned into a sea of flames. To avoid civilian casualties, Finn and Leo had no choice but to surrender to her. However, such restraints were trivial for Finn. As the kidnapper brothers prepared to torture them for information, Finn no longer hid his strength. He transformed his card into a handgun, successfully restraining the kidnapper brothers. Yet the flame-controlling Nyx remained dominant, and Finn's bullets melted in her flames, proving to be one of the weakest abilities. Finn couldn't find any opportunity to retaliate, and under continuous attack, he quickly reached his limit. As Nyx was about to deliver the final blow, a car blocked her attack. The newcomer was Chris, who then threw a suitcase to Leo, which turned out to be filled with cash. Leo also stopped hiding his strength. He too was a member of the Pinnacle organization, but his ability was special. He could transform the cash in his hand into equivalent valuable weapons. Although it seemed somewhat frivolous for the wealthy, this ability was tailor-made. Under the power of money, everything, including special ability holders, must yield. Leo successfully secured the Seven of Clubs. What Finn and Chris did not expect was that Leo was actually the owner of a Pinnacle organization franchise, and also the son of the organization's president. This woman has spent her life practicing how to kill with a sword sheath, because once she draws her sword, everyone will pay the price. Even teammates held hostage by enemies desperately distance themselves from her, as she becomes utterly insane once her blade is drawn, transforming from a docile woman into a crazed killer who can easily dispatch criminals with a joke. She possesses the Ace of Spades, a demonic blade. Whenever she draws the sword, her mind is overtaken by love and peace, and she is controlled by her second persona, Love P, who loves to recklessly attack people indiscriminately, making her a terrifying murderer. The only way to stop her is to forcefully take the sword from her hands. Her name is Wendy, and she is a team member with Finn and Chris. However, she often arrives late to work due to frequent drinking, and her relationships with colleagues are just average. On this day, the organization received a new mission, but Wendy was ordered to stay put, which displeased her. At that moment, the front desk phone rang, but the call was filled with gunshots and screams. It turned out that a group of criminals was robbing a bank, and Chris was taken as a hostage. Although he easily took down one criminal, he was shot by another while protecting fleeing hostages. The criminals also took a hostage to escape, but this was all part of Chris's plan to gather intelligence for the operation. Despite knowing the organization fears her power, Wendy insisted on going too, unwilling to rely on anyone else. Meanwhile, Chris successfully caught up with the criminals' vehicle and forced it into a blocked street. Just when the criminals thought they had escaped trouble, countless vines suddenly appeared in front of them, blocking their path. This was the power of the Three of Clubs held by VJ. At the same time, Wendy blocked the criminals' escape route. Empowered by the card's power, Wendy quickly subdued the group of criminals. At that moment, Wendy discovered that the criminals looked just like hostages. Then, the real criminal took advantage of this confusion to ambush VJ. This man, a special agent and holder of the Four of Hearts, had the ability to create 4 autonomous clones. Although these were not a threat to Wendy, dealing with numerous clones was still troublesome. At that time, she drew her demonic blade that sealed powers, and a terrifying murderous intent swept through. Wendy seemed transformed. killing each enemy with a single strike. Finn, receiving news of the situation, was puzzled until Chris explained Wendy's ability. The Ace of Spades takes over the user's mind, turning them into a machine that revels in slaughter. Faced with this overwhelming power, the once arrogant man had no choice but to surrender. Just then, a huge safe fell from the sky and sealed Wendy inside. It turned out that Leo had used his ability to swap for the sturdiest safe. But in the next second, Wendy broke free and charged at Leo, destroying a helicopter with a single slash. What started as a battle against criminals evolved into internal strife. Wendy would not easily give up on her teammates, as they only called on her when needed, and then fearfully distanced themselves. As Wendy was about to strike, Chris arrived and redirected her target. Fortunately, Chris was prepared and had previously used his card to become immortal. Otherwise, he would surely have been killed by Wendy. This allowed Wendy to attack without restraint, but Chris also took the opportunity to control the demonic blade. By the time Wendy realized, Finn had already launched an attack. A series of bullets knocked the demonic blade away. Wendy declared she would kill Finn the next time she saw him, reflecting the lonely path her father had spoken of. No matter how many friends Wendy had, drawing her sword meant facing solitude, a burden of her chosen role as a cardholder. Even after joining the organization, Wendy's life remained unchanged from that of an ordinary office worker, rushing for the bus in panic, falling and missing the last morning bus, and arriving late to face colleagues' teasing. However, after this transformation and awakening, Finn was there to support her, assuring Wendy that whatever happens, they would be by her side because they were a team. In that moment, Wendy felt as if she saw her father. The Ace of Spades was just an ability. Whether she felt lonely depended on her own heart. Due to the bank robbery incident, Chris caught the attention of the rookie police officer Sugar through surveillance footage. However, all related reports were deleted, and even her superiors were dismissive. Everyone advised her to back off, but Sugar was not ready to give up. During the interrogation of the criminals, Sugar quickly found a breakthrough and a valuable clue. Over the next few days, she kept a close watch on Chris's team, but found no suspicious activities after several days of surveillance. Sugar remained convinced she was correct, so one night she disguised herself as a suspicious person and lured Finn to a secluded spot, then used her police authority to arrest him. Meanwhile, Sugar's boss, Greg, was invited to a dinner party attended by various celebrities and figures from both the legal and illegal worlds. The main guest was Ban, the leader of the local mafia, the Klondike family. Ban had organized the party suddenly with the purpose of making an example of someone. This person was the criminal Sugar had interrogated. Ban publicly executed a traitor to the family, who quickly fell into a pool of blood, trembling. On the other side, Finn was being taken to the police station by Sugar. As their vehicle entered an intersection, a truck hit them, flipping their vehicle. Fortunately, both were unharmed. At that moment, the truck floated above them, and they narrowly escaped. Nearby, a figure appeared, also a card holder. Finn immediately used his card to transform it into a handgun, but the bullets he fired were all blocked by the woman, and even his hand was uncontrollable. In this world, there are 52 cards, each linked to a loyal knight with unique abilities. Collecting all the cards makes one the king of this world, possessing wealth and beauties. At an auction on a cruise ship, the Five of Diamonds, symbolizing justice, was available. The Pinnacle organization, representing justice, could not miss this opportunity, even though their formidable opponents included Norman, a business rival with 2 card holders. Leo's team planned to swap the real card with a fake. However, an unexpected issue arose. Finn had been vomiting since boarding, leading Leo to worry about the mission's success, though the others were more optimistic. At the auction, Leo attended as a VIP, and Finn, disguised as staff, stole the event manager's keys and handed them to VJ. VJ then placed the keys in a wine glass for Wendy to collect. Back in her room, Wendy waited for the courier, accidentally spilled her wine as a ruse, and used her charm to lure the courier in to change clothes. During this, VJ stealthily extended vines into Wendy's room to steal the courier's ID. Pressed for time, Wendy delayed the courier with red wine. Once Chris took the keys from outside the room, VJ used the vines to pass the stolen ID to Chris. Disguised as the courier, Chris successfully entered the warehouse. As they accessed the elevator, an accomplice smoothly replaced the surveillance footage. They only needed to open the safe and swap the cards. Just then, the lights in the elevator flickered suddenly, and a black man appeared behind Chris. He was Blist, Norman's bodyguard, and also a card holder. Blist instantly destroyed the fake card Chris was holding. Chris quickly used his card's power, but Blist was already aware of their plan. Facing Chris's counterattack, Blist continuously shocked Chris with 1,000,000 volts. If not for Chris's immortality, he would have turned to ash. Meanwhile, Leo was anxiously contacting his teammates, but Wendy was already drunk with the courier. Left with no choice, Leo had to keep bidding against Norman. At the same time, the seasick Finn found Chris. Just as Finn's seasickness flared up again, Blist took the opportunity to capture Finn as leverage. However, Chris kicked the card display stand, using the impact to rescue Finn. As the stand headed towards the venue, Finn chased it down, pushing it into the venue at the last moment, but accidentally knocked Leo over. Just as Leo was about to continue bidding, Finn vomited on him, causing Leo to miss his bid and allowing Norman to successfully win the card. However, surprises weren't over yet. A card holder from the Klondike family appeared, using their power to hijack the card, proving to be the strongest among those recently revealed. Compared to Norman, who had the card stolen from him, Leo's side seemed relaxed. This auction was never part of their original plan. This woman is deranged. To keep her beloved man by her side forever, she used her special ability to glue his hand to hers, a power derived from a mysterious card. As card retrievers, Finn and Chris targeted the woman. Chris was to distract her while Finn attempted the theft. However, before they could act, the woman quickly approached, grabbed both men's hands, pressed them together, and activated her card's power before swiftly leaving the scene. This left Finn and Chris in an awkward situation. Their hands stuck together, making everyone around assume they were a couple. Even bartenders would serve them one drink with 2 straws, a peak of unintended romance. Without delay, they set off to track down Chelsea. Even when they found her, their joined hands made it inconvenient to move, allowing Chelsea to easily escape. Amid these failures, Chris considered using his immortality to sever their arms. But after trying, their arms healed and stuck together again. With no other options, they resumed their pursuit. After several days running around the city, they still couldn't catch Chelsea. By a stroke of luck, they finally cornered her in an alley. Chelsea didn't want to hand over the card to them. She wanted to keep it for her beloved. Chris tried to persuade her with sweet talk, but Chelsea was not swayed, seeing Chris as a playboy. Just as Chris was about to follow her, Finn held him back, puzzled by Chris's urgency. Chris had to give up for the moment. Unexpectedly for Finn, Chris had a sister who, upon seeing their clasped hands, didn't react with surprise but instead wished them a lifetime together. Finn was about to object, but Chris quickly stopped him, not wanting his sister to worry about the dangers associated with the card. While the 3 of them were out, they unexpectedly ran into Chelsea, who was not willing to play along with Chris's act. To expose Chris, Chelsea decided to join them. Despite Chelsea's attempts to malign, Finn kept smoothing things over. Suddenly, Chris's sister coughed up blood and fainted. Chelsea quickly separated Chris and Finn's joined hands, revealing that Chris's sister had a congenital disease, the same as their late mother. Chris's love for his sister surpassed everything. To prevent Chris from causing trouble in the hospital, Chelsea used her card to glue Chris's hand to hers until his sister's condition stabilized. Only then did she release his hand. The doctor informed Chris that his sister needed to stay long-term in the ICU, though she often sneaked out to be with her brother, her only remaining family. Chris knew his sister's life was limited, but kept the severity of her condition from her, to spare her the fear of death. At that moment, Chelsea realized that sometimes a kind lie is also a form of love. She decided that when she no longer needed the card, she would give it to Chris, bearing the burden of truth and consequences herself. In this world filled with cards, each person with a card possesses unique abilities. However, the man in question has 2 cards. The 3 of diamonds allows him to turn anything he touches into marbles. The effects of the 3 of spades are unknown, but after merging the 2 cards, his body became like a marble, granting him infinite elasticity and the ability to instantly recover even from gunshot wounds. This man is Finn's nemesis, Bobby. Today, Finn returned to the orphanage where he was raised because it was the director's birthday. Finn came specifically to celebrate and was willing to use his salary to help keep the orphanage running. However, the director was reluctant to accept the money, knowing that Finn's job was dangerous. He preferred Finn to lead a safe life rather than worrying about the orphanage's future. While Finn was celebrating with the orphanage director, an unwelcome visitor arrived, Bobby from the Klondike family. Bobby immediately tried to turn the director's hand into marble. Finn transformed his card into a gun and demanded to know Bobby's intentions. Bobby responded by shooting marbles at Finn, who fired back immediately. The director quickly directed the children to evacuate. Bobby's purpose was straightforward: to kill Finn and take his card. His previous mission had failed, resulting in the loss of a stolen card and injuries inflicted by Finn, which weakened his position within his family. Therefore, he was determined to settle scores with Finn here and vowed never to lose again to Finn's weakest card, the two of spades. Then Bobby planned to burn down the orphanage that Finn cherished. An angry Finn knocked Bobby down but failed to inflict any serious damage. Watching the flames grow, Finn was reminded of a past memory. At that moment, Finn spotted a child in the hallway. He risked being attacked to lead the child to safety but was blocked by Bobby. They exchanged fire, but neither was injured. With thick smoke filling the air, Finn had no choice but to take the child to the rooftop. Bobby followed them there. Fortunately, other children downstairs used bed sheets to create a cushion, allowing the child to jump safely from the roof. With no more concerns, Finn faced Bobby's relentless attacks. He fearlessly closed the distance and punched Bobby, sending him flying. But as the smoke cleared, Bobby was holding two cards. With a flash of light, he merged the cards together, healing his wounds and revealing a tattoo on his face. Then, he extended his arm and sent Finn flying with a powerful blow, becoming even more arrogant. Finn shot back, but the impacted arm turned into a mass of marbles. In a panic, Finn was caught by Bobby. Finn fired at Bobby's head, but Bobby instantly recovered. It turned out that Bobby had set the fire because he had investigated everything about Finn. Finn's parents had not died in an accident, but were murdered in a fire. And now Finn was facing the same fate. As Finn recalled these buried memories, a missile suddenly struck Bobby's body from afar. The incident ended with the explosion. Miraculously surviving, Finn also remembered everything. His parents had not died in a traffic accident, but were killed by a dark night in a fire. In this world, playing cards possess unique abilities. The Five of Clubs grants the power to manipulate rocks, and the Ace of Diamonds controls all things. Luckily, Chris's card is extremely powerful. It can heal wounds and even resurrect the dead. Recently, the city center was attacked, causing numerous civilian casualties. The organization believed the attack was linked to a card holder, so they sent a card squad to assist the police with their investigation. Chris suspected the attack was a diversion to distract from the real target, an assassination attempt on a prince attending an event. Sure enough, a strange woman appeared beside the prince and used her powers to kill everyone in the car. By the time Chris arrived, only 2 suspects remained, but they managed to escape. As official card collectors, the Pinnacle organization received an urgent notice to go on full alert. Crimes committed by card holders are beyond ordinary human handling, and the king ordered the organization to collect all cards swiftly to prevent further chaos. Consequently, an emergency meeting was called. Vijay and Wendy were paired up, Leo went solo, and Chris was teamed with Finn. This grouping was decided because, since the orphanage incident, Finn had been locking himself in his room all day. Despite this, Chris remained very patient. Meanwhile, a cardholder from the Klondike family unexpectedly received a letter revealing the movements of Finn and others. As a result, Chris and Finn were intercepted by enemies as soon as they boarded the train. Jasper, a man who can manipulate metal, threatened to kill all the passengers unless they handed over their cards. His partner had already placed a huge rock on the tracks ahead of the train. However, Jasper's lack of intelligence was evident as Chris quickly threw him into a panic with just a few words, reminding him that he too would die if the train exploded upon crashing. As time passed, Jasper became increasingly agitated and soon had the entire train car in shambles. Finn tried to use his card, but Jasper transformed metal into a giant axe. Just as Finn seemed trapped, Chris kicked him out of the train, sending him plunging into the water below the bridge. Meanwhile, the control room activated the emergency brakes, but the train's speed barely decreased. Fearing death, Jasper used his powers to lift the tracks, creating a slope that finally stopped the train. Just as Chris was about to act, a chain suddenly restrained him, making him a prisoner of the Klondike family. On the other hand, Finn, who fell into the water, not only survived but was also rescued by a woman. This woman is like a female version of Nagato, not only using Deva Path but even Chibaku Tensei. Such are the powers gained from possessing a card. Finn and Chris are responsible for retrieving such cards. However, after boarding the train, they were attacked by card holders from the hostile Klondike family. Finn fell into a river, and Chris was taken prisoner. When Finn awoke, he found himself before a woman, Aya, who was his target for this mission. Unfortunately, Finn's card had already been taken by her. Aya meant no harm, as she was once a member of the same organization. She joined as a beautiful young girl and enjoyed playing the hero, righting wrongs with the Jack of Clubs. Her effectiveness ended when her first teammate was sacrificed. The organization, devoid of compassion, immediately sent Aya on another mission. Collecting cards was their only concern. Aya did not resist, but this became the catalyst for her departure from the organization. The breaking point for Aya came soon after, due to an incident sparked by a retaliatory attack. Tyler's child, another teammate, was targeted. The only way to save the child was to use the card's power, but the organization strictly prohibited personal use of cards. Tyler knelt, pleading for an exception, but the leadership told him to face reality and ordered Aya to retrieve Tyler's card. Disillusioned once again by the organization's ruthlessness, Aya watched as the leader drew a gun to kill Tyler's child. At that moment, the leader was suddenly pinned against the wall, and Aya urged Tyler to act quickly. Thus, the child was saved, but Tyler died from the strain of wielding 4 cards. After that, Aya left the organization and secluded herself in the mountains. The child saved was Chris, mysteriously linked to the organization all along. At this moment, Chris was enduring severe torture from Jasper, who was demanding the 5 of Hearts. Suddenly, Chris headbutted Jasper. Meanwhile, Aya voluntarily gave her card to Finn, curious to see what he would do under similar circumstances, knowing that he joined the organization to earn money to save the orphanage. Just then, the ground shook violently as a card holder from the Klondike family, Alexander, located them. He instantly raised a mass of broken rocks, knocking Finn away. Finn quickly returned the card to Aya, whose powers proved far superior. Before Alexander's attack could hit, Aya used Deva Path to save Finn. She then moved behind Alexander and used Deva Path again to smash rocks into him. Following Deva Path, she unleashed Chibaku Tensei, attracting everything nearby onto Alexander. However, Alexander, like Kurama, forcefully escaped the confines of Chibaku Tensei. He stomped the ground, trapping Finn with stone pillars and causing the ground under Aya to collapse as she was about to attack, making her fall into a pit. Just then, a car sped towards them. Alexander flipped the entire ground again, but Chris kicked him away. Chris's indestructible nature allowed him to manipulate the situation freely, yet Finn noticed that this time, Chris did not use his powers to heal his injuries. Instead, he took Alexander's card and, shockingly, pointed a gun at Finn the next second. In this world, every person with a card has unique abilities, but no one can escape the power of love. Faced with Chelsea's questioning, Chris said nothing and simply kissed her. Chelsea slapped him, but Chris was only interested in the package she delivered. 3 cards of the same rank. The 5 of Hearts was his own, granting him immortality. The 5 of Spades was from a card holder he encountered by chance, and the 5 of Diamonds was swapped at an auction, which was the card previously stolen by the Klondike family. In fact, he had already switched it. The mishap during the operation was intentional. Chris had leaked information to the Klondike family's card holder to snatch the 5 of Clubs from Alexander. This way, he could activate the power of 4 identical cards like his father. Just then, Chris was suddenly surrounded by police. He quickly ran to cover. As he prepared to use his card powers, unexpectedly, all the police were attacked by the Klondike family. Although unsure why, Chris had more pressing matters to attend to. Meanwhile, Finn, who had been shot, woke up again. The card's defensive power was unbreakable, and Chris had shot precisely where Finn's card was placed in his pocket. Leo informed Finn that Chris had been expelled from the organization and became the most wanted person, having stolen 4 identical cards. The purpose of Chris's actions was unknown because the Klondike family had already begun their move. All members of the organization, including Leo, were suspected of harboring Chris, especially Finn. Even his card was forcibly confiscated, and a new cardholder, Owen, was assigned to kill Chris. Just then, the orphanage director approached Finn. Chris had given all his savings to the director to help rebuild the orphanage. Seeing this, Finn couldn't help but smile. Chris was still the kind-hearted playboy he always was. Suddenly, Finn thought of Chris's sister and remembered what Aya had said about the card's power to resurrect the dead. Finn immediately rushed out. At the same time, the Klondike family was launching a full-scale attack. Ordinary guards were no match for the family, and the organization's powers were needed to fight back. Meanwhile, when Finn reached the hospital, Chris's sister was nowhere to be found, only a note left on the bed. Finn dialed the number on the note, and, just as Chris had predicted, Finn was the one to find a clue. Despite Finn warning Chris about the side effects of using 4 cards, Chris was determined to save his sister. After all, she was his only remaining family and his last chance. This is the most exhilarating ending in the anime. The weakest card holder breaks the seal, pushing the card's capabilities to their limit and hitting a target miles away with precision. Leo uses billions in cash to magically create a golden bridge, while the unhinged Wendy goes all out, battling enemies throughout the city. Meanwhile, all organization members are inside the palace, blocking an attack from the Klondike family, unable to attend to Chris's situation. Surrounded by money, Leo continuously converts it into equivalent weapons to fight but remains worried about Chris and Finn. His father, a higher-up, monitors everything, insisting that the king's safety must be prioritized. On the other side, as Finn is about to leave, he opens the door only to be knocked out by organization members. This scene is coincidentally witnessed by police officer Sugar, who, under the guise of her duty, rescues Finn. Unexpectedly, Finn was feigning unconsciousness and steals Sugar's car. While organization members continue shooting at Finn, Sugar steals her car keys back. Elsewhere, Chris is being interrogated by the police and is about to use his card to resist when suddenly, a tremor occurs. The police restraining Chris are defeated by Ban, the leader of the Klondike family. His motive is simple. He does not want cards to become the exclusive property of a tyrant. Without time to ponder Ban's intentions, Chris is solely focused on reviving his sister. Finn quickly deduces Chris's likely destination, their previously visited Ferris wheel. At this moment, Bernard suddenly appears on the screen. He had planted a listening device on Finn while he was unconscious. Just then, the woman from the Klondike family appeared again. With a mere wave of her hand, Finn's car was sent flying. Fortunately, Finn was unharmed. As the enemy prepared for a second attack, Chelsea helped Finn escape the attack range. Chelsea was injured while saving Finn, leaving her to place her hopes on him. Bernard, who learned of Chris's location, chose not to report to the organization but quietly informed Leo instead. Leo immediately sought his father's permission to search for Chris if the palace enemies were cleared. However, his father's response was disheartening. Their only target was the cards. Angered, Leo used all the cash around him to create numerous anti-tank cannons. Not only the enemies, but even the palace was nearly destroyed. When Leo pushed open the door he was protecting, he found neither his father nor the king there. He instantly ordered VJ and Wendy to evacuate and search for Chris. Chris was at the location Finn had guessed. Meanwhile, Finn was still unable to shake off the woman's pursuit. Wendy, who had arrived, blocked the attack and had already drawn her demonic blade. A car stopped in front of Finn. It was Bernard. Perhaps only the frenzied Wendy had a chance to fight this enemy. The battle between the two women was devastating. Police officer Sugar holding a gun warned them to stop, but they completely ignored her. Suddenly, a dazzling light emanated from the Ferris wheel. Finn understood that Chris had activated the power of 4 cards. Given the situation, there was no stopping Chris. Just then, Leo successfully met up with Finn and used all the money in the entire train car to create a road made of gold, demonstrating just how powerful money could be. However, due to the limited amount of cash, they ultimately failed to reach the Ferris wheel where Chris was located. Bernard returned the two of spades to Finn, who was now the only one who could stop Chris. Finn successfully rescued Chris, but in doing so, he broke the prohibition of using 4 cards. Although it did not cure his sister, her life was no longer in danger, and Chris himself did not die from the backlash of the cards. The Klondike family returned to silence. As for handling Chris, the organization expelled both Finn and Chris. However, during Chris's hospital stay, Finn was the first to return to the organization, and Chris became Finn's subordinate.